That's the only way the state can take your property is eminent domain. So if that's the only way the state can take your property, how's your county showing coming in because you didn't pay this tax? How are they sending the sheriff's office in here to come break your door down, pull you out of the house, arrest you as a vagrant, kill your pets, and throw you in jail and then sell your property? If the state can't do it, how's your local municipality doing it?
Hey guys, that was our friend Alphonse Faggiolo, and he's a real property tax expert. In fact, he knows just how unconstitutional your property taxes are. We're going to dig into it in this one. Thanks so much for tuning in. Before we start, just a quick word about our sponsor. I've been in Bitcoin since 2015, and I'm very proud to be sponsored by a great company that's got your back. Finally, a crypto trading platform with top-notch US-based client service that will actually answer the phone when you need help. And with the United States Bitcoin Strategic Reserve coming into fruition,
the reserve will be capitalized with Bitcoin that the federal government already owns, so it won't cost taxpayers a dime. This is like a digital Fort Knox for digital gold.
There's never been a more opportune time to enter this sector. And if you think you're late, think again. Whales are buying Bitcoin like never seen before. Something is coming. In fact, if you look at all past Bitcoin cycles, we are in the sweet spot, the calm before the storm of the next leg up. M2 global liquidity has been spiking, and Bitcoin always seems to lag M2 global liquidity by about 90 to 100 days. Now, past performance is no guarantee of future results, but smart money, like the whales, are buying in mass. If you want your piece of the digital gold pie, My Digital Money can help you get there. My Digital Money, the secure way to invest in digital assets using your IRA or cash account. Get started on your future today. The link is below. Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here. Guys, as promised, a little tax talk today, this time about one of the most onerous, insidious, evil taxes in the history of mankind. It's that little thing called property tax. Do you ever truly own your home outright? Well, not as long as the state has anything to say about it. I've got my returning guest, Alphonse Faggiolo, back on the line. You can find him under the same name on Telegram and YouTube. And let me show the website, a fantastic apropos name, municipalterrorism.com. Alphonse, welcome back. How are you, brother?
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. I want to start here with a soundbite from Ron DeSantis, just to set the stage about that onerous little thing called property taxes. Guys, y'all know the drill. You buy a house, maybe you're in your 70s, and you bought a house for $100,000 many, many years ago. Well, today, your municipality, your county says that house is worth $900,000. You'll end up paying more in property taxes every year today than you ever had to pay per month in a mortgage payment. That's how insidious it is. Here's Ron DeSantis on property taxes in Florida.
Subject their citizens to higher taxes, such as higher property taxes, to pay for these spending habits. And you know, these property taxes, it's like you buy a home, you buy land, you know, maybe you buy the home outright, but maybe you pay off a mortgage over 30 years. And then, okay, you've paid off the mortgage, you bought the land, you've been taxed many times. It's like, is it your property or not? Just for being on your property, you got to write a check to the government every year. So you're basically paying rent to the government to live on your own property. And our homestead exemption is not strong enough to help these folks because the property gets assessed so high. And that's the thing. If you buy a home for $300,000 and you know there's certain tax, well then what? 10 years later, they say it's worth $700,000, and so, and they say, you know, there's homestead stuff that helps protect you to a certain extent, but you're paying more, and a lot of people can't afford that. So I think that that's a big issue, and I know we're going to be really looking at ways to bring people relief from that, because I think it's been really something that's pinching a lot of homeowners, particularly seniors on fixed income.
So guys, I mean, the question is, will Florida become the first state in the union to ban property taxes, put an end to property taxes? I don't know. We can hope. It would be great for the people of Florida. And let me tell you, wouldn't the land grab begin at that point? If you're having a hard time selling your home in Florida right now due to the housing bubble, guys, just wait until those property taxes go away. Then those $3 million homes, well, they won't have $34,000 a year assessed in property taxes. Alphonse, I know you're taking on the demon creatures in Pennsylvania. Where would you like to begin, even as it just relates to that soundbite from DeSantis?
Yeah, I mean, listen, nothing happens in a vacuum. And listen, DeSantis didn't wake up one day and go, you know what? I think I'm going to talk about property taxes today. If you notice, DeSantis, governor of Florida, and if you've heard the name before, a gentleman named Steve Emerson that lives in Florida. And Steve's well known for sort of a landmark case among people that have been involved in this property tax movement. Steve had once gotten a gentleman a $38.2 million settlement in Florida because they took his house for property taxes. And Steve's gotten about 20 other properties off the tax roll in Florida. Steve knows DeSantis as far as he's spoken to DeSantis. He's spoken to DeSantis' office. DeSantis is well aware of what's going on with this property tax crap. And it looks like DeSantis is trying to do a soft landing because I'm over here filing in Pennsylvania. You got James Tracy, who's been on your show, known as James the Patriot. He filed in Utah. Then you got another gentleman named Benny in Florida also who filed a case in Florida. So you're starting to get these property tax suits pop up. But what's different with these property tax suits as opposed to the others, these aren't the free man on the land lawsuit, my all capital name. No. These are actual lawsuits that are based off the actual state tax code. And we've studied this so much that we understand. We know the tax process better than the governor knows the actual property tax process because we've read this stuff thousands of times and know how it has to work. You know, certain things have to work. And that's the main problem is people don't understand really what a property tax is. And if you'd like, I mean, I could take people from the basics of just like a primer on what property taxes are, because I don't think anybody understands their property taxes or how they work. You know? No,
I think you're 100% right. And I do want you to take us through that. Let me just start with a clip, though, that you provided from your recent case in court in Pennsylvania. And you said this to the judge, and I think it was very effective. And I think it was very well said. Listen to this, guys.
You're being ripped off. If you own a property and you're paying a property tax and there's no taxable business privileges occurring in that property, you're being ripped off by your county. Did you get assessments from the county? They're not assessments. Whatever you get a piece of paper. Well, they're fictitious fraudulent bills. They're not assessments. It's not an assessment. An assessment in Pennsylvania requires three things. It's the market value of the property, it's depreciation and replacement costs, and it's the income range of the property. They have no market value in the property. They're looking at like a ZELLE or a Trulia printout and guessing what the property costs. They have no depreciation replacement costs. They have no income approach because there's no income on the property. They don't have assigned assessment. They use what they call property tax, property record cards made from the CAMA system. That's their computer system. It looks like something you would see on ZELLE online. Nobody signed it. It meets no statute. It does not meet the statutory requirement of what an assessment is. They don't have an assessment, and they don't have any returns. And it's well-established law in Pennsylvania Title 53 that a taxpayer is required to file a return. It's not an option. He's required to file a return. They have no returns filed by me. They have no evidence that I'm required to file a return. They don't have an assessment of the property.
All right, I'll pause it there. We'll come back to Alphonse. Alphonse, you know, it's like James Tracy told me when he and I talked about this. He said, the people in charge of this system don't even understand the system. It's just been happening for decades. Nobody knows why. Nobody can prove why it's legal, why it's constitutional. And you cited in your argument with that judge, you said, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, guarantees our right to free speech and our right to own property. The county can no more tax your speech, Alphonse, than it has the right to tax your property. I thought that was very well said. Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, people understand, listen, property, the U.S. is one of the few countries where, believe it or not, property, you have a right to own property. It's a substantive right. That the Constitution doesn't give you that. No legislation gives you that. You have a substantive right to own property. It's well-established law that you cannot tax a right. So if you own a right, if you have a right to own a property, and they're literally taxing it. They're literally taking your right to own your property, Sean, and saying, listen, Sean, we're going to put a value on your property and we're going to tax it. And I said to the judge right there in that hearing, that's a federal judge that I talked to. He got schooled on the tax code because he actually admitted in that hearing that he didn't understand the Pennsylvania tax code. He admitted it in the hearing. Not only did he admit that, he admitted I knew the actual federal rules better than he knew them. So there I am talking to a judge saying, Judge, it's no different than me putting, you have a right to free speech. no different than me saying, Judge, I'm going to assign a value to your free speech right, and I'm going to tax it. There's no difference between that and your property. And the government was created to protect personal rights. All right. And really, the government, I know it's ironic to say this, but they were put there for your peace, safety, and happiness. They were there to protect your personal rights. That's not what they're doing here. What they're doing is you have, and believe it or not, Sean, it's really not the state that's doing this, okay? Though these fall under state taxes, these are these local municipalities. These are your counties that are doing this. These are your counties doing it, and it's being orchestrated by the Bar Association, by the attorneys, all right? And the attorneys that are orchestrating this, like James said even there, they don't understand the process either. They don't understand the tax code because they really never read it. And at that hearing, Sean, when I got the county attorney on the other side of me, I took him apart. Here's how biased they are. Now he's a high-priced attorney that the county had to go out and hire to litigate against me. He got the 11th Amendment wrong. Okay, attorney who took the bar exam got the 11th Amendment wrong, and he had a federal rule wrong. Rule 8 he had wrong, and I took him apart on that and corrected him on that. And then I had a dispute with the judge over what's called Rule 12, Sean, because here's what they're doing in these federal courts. When you file a lawsuit, Sean, you're entitled to an answer. And if I filed against the United States or a United States officer, they've got 60 days to file an answer with me. If I filed against anybody else, which is my county, my local town, they have 21 days to respond. All right. And it says they must respond. They must file an answer. Now, they've either got to do that or they've got to show through what's called a 12B1 or a 12B6 motion that the court really can't hear this case. And this is the game plan they have, Sean. What they're doing is they're routinely filing these 12B1, 12B6 motions. And I'm not make it sound complicated, but all 12B1 means is the court doesn't have jurisdiction to hear this actual matter. And 12B6, what they file is they're saying, you failed to state a cause, which is what they're really saying is, well, you never showed you were harmed in this matter. So when an attorney files that, they've got to support it with something, Sean. They've got to show that you're a taxpayer. If they're going to call it a tax case, claiming that the court can't hear it under 12B1, because federal courts can't hear state tax cases, then that attorney must file something to show them a taxpayer. And that could be a tax return I filed. That could be an assessment they have, a valid assessment they have. That could be a business license. That could be a charter that I filed under the state. They don't have any of that. So these attorneys are filing these 12B1, 12B6 motions with no support, no evidence whatsoever. And the judges are getting them going, yep, it says tax in the case. I can't hear this. Dismissed. And they'll dismiss it under what's called the Tax Injunction Act. And Sean, I'm going to make this real simple for people. Here's what the Tax Injunction Act was put in place for. Years back, if you had two companies, I'm talking companies, not me and you, Sean, not people. I'm talking companies. And one company was located in the county taxing district. And another company was a foreign company in another country, but they were doing business in that same county district with the other company. So you got two companies, one foreign and one that's residential, one that's established there. So if both companies filed a lawsuit against the county involving taxes in federal court, there was a weird stipulation where the party that was a U.S. corporation in that county, they had to prepay the taxes and then try and get the matter resolved and get the money back by the resolution of the court case. Whereas the foreign corporation that filed in the county, they didn't have to pay the taxes. They could wait to the outcome of the case. And what was happening was these foreign corporations were holding the counties hostage because they would draw these cases out 2, 3, 4 years, Sean. And if you're talking about a county that, say it's a big corporation like Boeing that's in there doing business, and that county really relies on Boeing to be in there. Well, say Boeing was a foreign corporation. Well, Boeing could keep this going on for 2, 3, 4 years and deprive that county of any tax money. And that could be detrimental to the running of the county because they're real taxpayers. The foreign corporation's a taxpayer, and the company and the county's a real taxpayer. So what they did is they passed this Tax Injunction Act, and basically all it said is that that the federal courts, not that they can't deal with all tax matters, that something like that is an actual tax matter, Sean. That these are two taxpayers. One's outside the country and one's inside.
So the judges are using that to kick the ball out of their court entirely because they don't want to deal with this issue. Okay. Well, explain to people how they're taking non-commercial property and putting them on the commercial tax roll. That was your argument in Pennsylvania court. And I guess I would ask, why is it that they would think commercial property is taxable and non-commercial property isn't taxable? I don't think any property should be taxable.
Right. Well, first, and people need to understand, in all 50 states, all property taxes are what's called ad valorem taxes. And if you look up a basic definition of ad valorem, it'll say according to value. But if you go deeper into it, and you read case law and you read a ton of cases like we did, ad valorem is a tax on an article of commerce, basically. Because really, think about it, Sean. We're not going to dispute. Nobody's going to dispute that you have a right to own property. So if you have a right to own property, wouldn't them putting a value on your house, your property you own, and taxing it, wouldn't that be literally taxing your right to own the property? Oh, of course it would. And that's what they're doing. And the way they're doing this is, believe it or not, me and Steve differentiate on this. I think it's more malicious. Steve thinks they're just completely idiots and stupid. It might be a combination of the two. But what a taxpayer is, by definition, in Pennsylvania, and I'll guarantee in your state, if you look up the definitions in the revenue laws, taxpayers are required to file returns. That's one of the things taxpayers are required to do. And if you look up the definition of really what a taxpayer is, it's a business or person organized under the statutes of the state and doing business in the state and owning property in the state. That's exactly what a taxpayer is. Okay. And in that video you referenced that I did, that's a great little primer. It's like 8 minutes and 20 seconds. And it sort of walks everybody through the property tax process. So now a corporation is doing business. They file returns, Sean, with the county each year. You and I don't file returns with the county. We don't file returns with the county on our house. And like you referenced with that clip you played, I told the judge what an actual assessment is in Pennsylvania. Now, I didn't make that up. Pennsylvania legislature said, here's what an assessment is. It's got 3 elements. It's the market value of the property. Well, in order for them to get a market value of your property, Sean, somebody would have to literally come on your property and in your property to view it in order to do an assessment. Because if they didn't come on your property and in your property, anything they wrote down on that sheet, that's complete hearsay. It's nonsense. It's arbitrary. They can never come into court and testify to that document because they have no personal knowledge pursuant to rules of evidence, Rule 602. In other words, your county assessor, Sean, I guarantee could never come into court and testify that that thing they're calling as an assessment on your house, that, yep, they created that. Nor would anyone step forward in any matter against you or me and say, yep, I'm the one that created this quote-unquote assessment that's not an assessment. So that's what a taxpayer is. It's an entity organized under the state statutes. Now, we also have individual taxpayers, Sean. That's somebody who's not organized and incorporated under the statutes, but they're doing business in the county. That could be Joe Plumber, that maybe he has a store in a strip mall. He's got a little plumbing store, and he didn't file articles of incorporation with the state. All right, he's just doing business, and he's using whatever his social. You don't have a taxpayer ID number like you get when you file with the state. He's got using maybe his social security number as his tax ID number. He would be an individual. So people get confused on that word individual when they see individual. An individual is really like a sole proprietorship, or it's an entity that's not organized and incorporated under the statutes, but is doing business in the taxing district. So you have corporate taxpayers and you have individual taxpayers. You and I are neither of those, okay? All you do is you're some guy owns property where you eat there, you sleep there, and you drink there. That's it. So what they decided to do, and here's how, Sean, in that video, you'll see it. I actually pointed out. Here's Here was the attorney's, the county's attorney, this high-priced attorney. His entire reason for taxing the property, Sean, came from one statute. It's in Pennsylvania. It's called Title 53, 8811. And here's all it says. It's an enumerated list of taxable property, houses, the RVs, whatever, equipment, tools, and it's got a list of all things that are taxable. And the first thing it says is house. And what he failed to look at is Section A right there, right above that enumerated list. It says the following enumerated property made taxable by the laws of the Commonwealth. And I said to the judge, he can't cite what law makes the house taxable. All that is enumeration of property. They're not saying just because we wrote house on there it became taxable. Gee, what if they wrote guitar on there? What if they wrote dog on there? Does it automatically become taxable? No. There's got to be a process that makes it taxable. So the attorney's entire argument was, look, it said house. And here's the best part, Sean. When he fought that on paper, that was actually fought on paper earlier, he cited one case in Pennsylvania for house. And he said it's a case that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court said, well, of course a house is real estate. And what he failed to tell the judge, or what the judge decided that he wasn't going to look at, was the house that they were talking about in that case was owned by a corporation in Pennsylvania that was using the house as a bowling alley for their employees, okay? And since they were using it as a bowling alley, they didn't think they should be paying taxes on that because it wasn't really contributing to their business. They weren't using it in any business fashion. It was just a house that they used for a bowling alley. That was his entire argument of why my property's taxable. And when you see that, man, that should raise red flags for everybody, that these people have no understanding of what they're doing.
So how do you unwind this? Because, even if you're right and the judge isn't listening and you don't get your justice that you seek in court, how do you unwind this? Better yet, how did Steve Emerson unwind it in Florida and get at least several of his properties off the property tax rolls?
And I tip my hat to Steve for this, and he beats me over the head with this constantly, that I'm not doing this. And he put a little network together of people that literally work the phones. He sent that, the gentleman, I'll just give his first name. The gentleman he got the $38.2 million settlement for, a guy named John. Okay. And he taught John how to litigate that suit. It took him like 6 months to teach John how to litigate that suit because Steve couldn't litigate for him. So when he filed that suit, he had a little, we call it the media blitz. He sent that suit to Judge Janine Shapiro when she had a show. He sent it to Nancy Grace's office. He sent it to the federal FBI, the local FBI. He sent it to all the news stations. He sent that suit to all the media around there that should care for it. And then they literally worked the phone, Sean. He had people calling up saying, hey, you going to do an investigation on this suit? Because what had happened in this lawsuit, Sean, the guy owed about $8,000. They literally came in and arrested him as a vagrant in his own house. Within a week, they killed all his animals. They took his private belongings in the house and literally threw him out on the street. So people could people were stealing them, and they sold the house, okay, and put him in jail as a vagrant for a while. That was egregious. And Steve luckily got the ear of the local FBI agent there, gentleman there. They're called the special agent in charge. That's who's in charge of your local FBI. That's his title, special agent in charge. And when you get their name, that's who you want to direct your federal criminal complaints to. But Steve got his ear. And what happened, Sean, is all of a sudden, Nancy Grace's office called the county to ask about this case. What's going on with this case? Judge Janine Shapiro's office called the county. Hey, what's going on with this case? The FBI agents started doing regular calls to the county to find out what's going on with this case. And given the horrific stuff that went on in this case, arresting a guy as a vagrant and killing his pets, this was going to look real bad in federal court and look real bad on the national news if this thing, caught wind. So they came to the settlement table. And I won't go into details of the settlement, but it settled at $38.2 million. But Steve has that existing network in place. And that's the one thing I was missing with my suit. And that is my fault. But it's hard to, Sean, I can't take, listen, you'll listen to my point. You'll hear it. but I can't take the local people here and twist their arm and make them make phone calls, you know? I mean, I could try and get people together to call them and say, hey, listen, what's going on with this guy's Faggiolo suit? How come the county's not answering? How come they won't answer the lawsuit? They said they're supposed to answer in 21 days. They're not answering. They want to talk about everything but the tax stuff. And Sean, if this is legitimate, why wouldn't the county turn around and file like a 20-page answer and say, here's where Mr. Faggiolo has us all wrong. Here's what we're doing. We're doing this, and we're doing that, and that's how we're taxing the property. They can't do that. They have no clue on how to do that. So they try and argue everything but the facts of the matter, which are they're taking non-commercial property. And when you hear ad valorem, that's your tax roll. Every property tax is an ad valorem tax. That's a commercial tax roll, okay? It's a tax on duties. And when you look at the federal constitution, there's three things they can tax: duties, imposts, and excises. Duties and imposts are importing and exporting. Sean, I'm pretty sure you're not importing and exporting stuff of your property, and I'm not doing it on my property. So duty and imposts go out the window. So the only thing left to tax are excises. And what an excise tax is, it's a privilege tax. And that's what you're doing. If you're a real corporation in your county, Sean, and you're doing business there, you're literally using the county as a business privilege. You're conducting the business privilege in the county. I don't care what it is. Once you are organized and incorporate, whatever your company is, you're conducting a business privilege in the county. And then each year, what will happen is you'll file a federal tax return, and you'll also file a return. They'll file a return with the county. And from that return they file with the county will ascertain the amount of the assessment. And that's what the assessment is that the company will pay. Sean, you and I don't file with the county. We don't file taxes on our home. We don't depreciate and do replacement costs. We don't report income to the county on our home. And there's no market value. The county doesn't know the market value of our property. Even DeSantis said that. No one knows the market value of property until somebody comes up and gives you a check for the value of it. So it's all speculation. And this is what they're doing. If you want me, I'll go into detail on how they're doing these phony assessments.
Well, what I really want to figure out is how to unwind all this stuff and make it stop, because it's obviously taxation without representation, because you can't get a fair answer from the county or anybody associated with the county to show you how this is constitutional. So they just ignore the whole matter. And if you really press them on it and you stop paying your property taxes, what happens, Alphonse? I bet you lose your house.
They'll come with thugs and steal your house from you, okay? And listen, here's the real weird thing with this is at no time did listen, I had this in the district court, and then I appealed it to the appellate court. At no time did they say the case didn't have any merit or it was frivolous. All they said is they hid behind the Tax Injunction Act. Oh, it's a tax case. We can't hear it. And they want to force you back into state court. And to me, it's like literally these people in the state are raping you. It's no different than rape. People are taking money and will steal your home from you if you don't pay them this extortion, this ransom. So the people that are doing that to you, you can't even go to the federal court now and get these people to answer for what they're doing, because now they want it the federal court saying Tax Injunction Act, you need to go back to the people abusing you, the rapists, the extortionists, and you need to get remedy from them. And that's a high, I don't know how you, that's like, Sean, how do you clear that hurdle? That's like suing somebody. You're suing somebody's kid, and the parents or the judge, they're going to be the judge in your matter. You're suing their kid. You're not going to get anywhere with that. So I'm now trying to work this out now too. I may go at them in state court, and it may not be what they expect, because they're going to expect me to sort of bring the same suit. It's going to be a whole new suit. And I'm going to bring in the third-party company that did the phony assessment, company called Tyler Technologies. Sean, they're a third-party company. They're a private company that they're creating assessments for my county. Your county's probably doing the same. They hire these firms, these private companies, to do these assessments. But what they're doing, what they're returning back to the county, I showed you what those three elements of what an assessment has to be. They don't have any of those elements. So what they're giving back to the county aren't assessments. They're falsified documents. And technically, I would call it securities fraud. Mm-hmm. Because how's a private company contracting with the county to create documents for my property. The county don't own my property. The third-party company don't own my property. So how are they creating this property record card? They're calling it a property record card, Sean, because they can't call it an assessment. It ain't an assessment. They're calling it a property record card. So maybe it's going to come down to me having to drag this third-party company in for fraud and sue them, only sue them, and let them. They're going to try and enjoin the county. They're going to try and bring the county in the suit, and then I'm going to start going after them, because who is the judge to let the county come into a lawsuit when I'm the only owner of the property? The county don't have any property.
That's an outstanding point, right? Produce the contract. This whole thing just gets me nuts, man, because do you want to hear a crazy story? Let me share a crazy story with you. I want your take on this. So this is how out of control these cities and counties and municipalities are. In the city in which I live, Alphonse, this neighborhood we live in was built about 25 years ago, right? Our house is about 20 years old. The neighborhood itself is about 25, 26 years old. The roads are not very old. The curbs are not very old. But the city decided that the roads need to be repaved and some of the curbs need to be replaced. And every single house in this neighborhood of some 250, 260 houses got assessed $4,000 to do this roads repair. And I went to the city council meeting with my wife, and I wanted to ask a very simple question. And it was this: produce the contract, city, that says I have any ownership of these roads and I am therefore entitled or required to pay for them. I don't have to plow the roads. I can't park my car in the middle of the road or have dinner in the middle of the road at 5 o'clock on a Saturday night. So why in the world would I be assessed to repair those roads? I said, what do our property taxes go for? They basically said schools, fire, police, and retirement packages. Really seriously, that's what they said. And then they cited some BS statute, Minnesota state statute, allowing them to do this. And by the way, in another neighborhood within the same city, those people, because it's a wider road, they got assessed about $9,000 per house. And I guarantee you, those people didn't have $9,000 sitting around in a bank account. So it just makes my blood boil. You tell me how that is constitutional.
No, it's not. And those roads and all you're talking about that were put in, listen, they would be a benefit to any businesses that are there, right? They're actually incorporated under the statutes and doing business there. They're beneficial, so therefore they could tax those businesses for that cost. But like I said, you're just some guy who owns a home. You're not responsible for that. And to prove what you're talking about, no, there is no contract involved. And the courts have said taxes have nothing to do with contract. I agree with them. Taxes have nothing to do with contract. But here's how manipulative they are with the system. When this whole tax thing starts, when you start fighting these people, here's what they'll do, Sean. The local court, okay, the clerk will send out a notice to you that there has been a claim filed against your property, Sean. Somebody filed a claim against your property. Your local town or the county filed a claim against your property. The Office of Judicial Support, which are nothing but administrators for that court. They're not judges. They just can't do things like a judge does. They'll send you out in Pennsylvania. It's called a Rule 236 notice. And here's how simple this is to understand. There's two elements to a Rule 236 notice, Sean. Section A is judgment by confession. There's your contract, Sean. That's what a judgment by confession is. Because when people don't understand is when they get a loan, a mortgage for a house, or they take a loan out, when they sign those documents with the lender, they grant what's called a warrant. It's called a warrant of attorney to the lender. They call it a cognitive clause, but basically, really all it is you're agreeing that if you default on that loan, that you give them the right to bypass standard legal process and go right to the clerk and get a default. Because the clerk in that matter is not acting as in it. They're not making any judicial decisions. The clerk, she's not not making any judicial determinations. All she's doing would be executing that contract that you agreed to beforehand when you signed for that loan. So Section A of that 236 notice is judgment by confession. That's basically if I signed a document saying that for a mortgage, if this was a mortgage foreclosure, a mortgage company is doing this. They would literally give papers to the clerk saying, look, Mr. Faggiolo signed this. He said that if he defaulted on payments, that we could come get a default judgment against him. And the clerk could sign it. So the tax matters that you and I are involved, I don't fall under Section A. There's no contract involved here. There's no judgment by confession. And then section B is what the clerk's doing is noticing you of any court order or court judgment. Well, Sean, clerks can't write orders. Clerks can't write judgments. Clerk's office can't write orders. Clerk's office can't write judgments. All section B is talking about is that some judge signed something in that case and they're notifying you of it. And in both matters, if it's a judgment by confession or is a court order signed against you, they must attach that order or judgment by confession with the actual notice and send it to you. Guess what they never send you, Sean? Nothing, because all they do is send you the notice. Hey, there's a judgment against you. No judgment by confession paperwork sent to you. No court order from a court. So now you've just seen a process where there's no legal process there, Sean. That's not law. That's some secretary working in an office that put a claim in against your property, created a lien on your property without a day in court. There was never a day in court for you. That's a due process violation, okay? They can do that with a corporation, Sean, because the corporation, when they organize and incorporate under the statutes, just like it's a judgment by confession, they agree to pay taxes when they organize and incorporate. And if they don't pay taxes, then your local municipality can file a claim against them, and the clerk can then sign a judgment by confession and give you the claim against you. So there's proof right there that what they're doing is it's called a color of law action, okay? It's not the actual law. It's not how the law works. And you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still with you. But I just wanted to make the point, too, because the crux of this whole thing is, for many of us, Americans anyway, red-blooded Americans and our right to own property, when you really consider it, and I don't know why more people aren't angry as hell about this. It's the most insidious tax. Maybe the only worst tax is death tax. You work your whole life and then the state wants to take half. But this is such an insidious tax. People don't get angry enough about it because, when we think of totalitarian regimes, when we think of a monarchy, we think of the British people. They're royal subjects and they're subject to tax. They never get to own their land outright. They basically lease their land from the royal crown. And I saw in your lawsuit, you noted Title 53, Chapter 88, Section 8811, quote, subjects of local taxation. See, we're just subjects. Maybe that word's a double entendre, but we're subjects not to the royal crown, but to these bureaucrats, these faceless, nameless bureaucrats, these pencil pushers who never, ever have to defend what they're doing.
And well, see, what people need to understand is your local town where you live and your county where you live, they are what they call political subdivisions of the state, okay? But they're not the state. And that's why the attorney in that hearing got it wrong. He was trying to claim like they were the state and they had 11th Amendment immunity. 11th Amendment just says that you can't sue the state. You can sue somebody who works for the state, but you can't sue. I can't sue Pennsylvania directly. I can sue somebody working for Pennsylvania, but I can't sue Pennsylvania. So he initially tried to say, hey, we got immunity. No, listen, you're a political subdivision. And it literally says in case law and the law, Sean, it says they have no power to tax. Counties have no inherent power to tax, and your local town has no inherent power to tax. The only power to tax they have is what the state legislature expressly grants to them. That's the key word, expressly. Expressly means it's got to be spelled out. Not that it said house in that one statute. It said house. That didn't make the property taxable, Sean, because when you read about what taxes are, they say it's a process. It's a multi-tiered process of how taxes are created, how they're made. And what would that multi-tiered process be? Well, I would organize and incorporate a business. I would sell products in the county, and I'd file return with the county, and they would then from that return ascertain an assessment. But that's not what's going on here. They're not doing that. These political subdivisions. They're literally creatures of the state. And there's great tax law down here. There's great case law down here in Pennsylvania. It says it would be basically they're saying it seems odd that and they're talking about the contradiction of it is if the state can't do it to you, how's the political subdivision doing it to you? In other words, Sean, the state can't come in and take your property. The only way the state can come in and get your property, and you can still fight them on it, will be eminent domain. If they're going to put a highway, it's going to go right through your property. You can still fight them on it, probably lose, but it will be eminent domain. And even in that case, they would then have to give you just compensation. And usually in those kind of cases, usually in most eminent domain cases, they actually give people more than what the property's worth to try and stop any lawsuits. So if your property's worth $500,000, they may give you $1 million to just get you out of there. That's the only way the state can take your property is eminent domain. So if that's the only way the state can take your property, how's your county showing coming in because you didn't pay this tax? How are they sending the sheriff's office in here to come break your door down, pull you out of the house, arrest you as a vagrant, kill your pets, and throw you in jail and then sell your property? If the state can't do it, how's your local municipality doing it? They're doing it because everyone wants to look the wrong way. Like no one wants to actually look at what's happening. Why? Because you're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar operation. You're talking about a trillion-dollar operation just here in Pennsylvania. Probably the same thing in your state. They don't. That's a cash cow, and they're going to do everything possible to protect it. And the problem we're having, guys like that are doing what I'm doing is, Sean, we're not going after traffic tickets in federal court. We're going after big issues, okay? We're going to tear the whole thing down issue, okay? And we're not tearing anything down. We just want them to follow the law. It'll feel like a tear down because they can run this. Listen, I would say 75 to 80% of the properties on the tax rolls shouldn't be on there. They have no business being on these tax rolls. So now they're shutting us out of the federal courts. I'm not done yet because what I might do is, like I said, I'll move through the state process and prove that I have no remedy in the state courts because I asked for the documents that they should have by law, and they told me they don't have them. So then how can I challenge a document that they don't have, okay? How do I challenge an assessment you don't have? Then I would have to go back to the federal court and go, hey, I did what you people asked me to do. I went through the state court process. Here's what went down. They don't have the documents. These people are falsifying their tax roll. So they're hanging on by tooth and nail. Basically, they're fighting because this is a big issue, Sean. Major issue.
I think it's the biggest issue of our time.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the biggest issues of our time because, again, if you don't own your property outright, you never will. If you have to pay taxes on your property every single year and the taxes only go up, which is the case with property taxes, I've really never seen them go down. You don't own your property and you never will. Here's the website, guys, municipalterrorism.com, a group of people who genuinely love our country. Tell people about the group.
Yeah, I mean, the Telegram group's great. The Telegram group, when you get in there, you're dealing with people that are actually, we got one person suing an ex-governor of Oregon. That suit's still going on. We got people filing real lawsuits here for big issues. And the good thing about it is get in there. Like if you're having a problem with something, don't jump into the group and tell us about your all cap name and your birth certificate. We don't care. That's all crap. We don't care about that. Tell us what's going on with your issue. Post your document. If somebody filed something against you, scan it and post it so we can see what it is. Because we've all been through this for years now. Like you and I will read a statute, Sean, and I'll read it totally different than you will. Why? Well, gee, I read 1,000 more cases than you read, and I read about statutory construction and what the court said that is. So when I read it, I'm reading it probably better than most attorneys will read it because I'm reading it how the legislature actually wrote it. And it confused a lot of people. So post your stuff up there in the Telegram group, and you'll get opinion. You'll get feedback on how you should proceed. And we've won a lot of things, Sean. We knocked a lot of stuff out, even stuff in their courts. When I say their courts, I'm talking administrative courts, and we can get into that real quick if you want to see how that is. Yeah. So what I did, that's what the group is. If you need help, basically come in there, post in the Telegram group. The municipalterrorism.com site, that's got great links on there to case law. We have a ton of case law up there for people, for everything. If you need case law about taxes, case law about your local municipality, we got a ton of case law up there. Then we also have another Telegram group, all linked together, where we actually have legal documents that we filed, Sean. These are not things that we made up and pulled out of the air. These are documents that we filed in federal and state court cases. These are tax suits. These are suits about the phony virus, Sean. We fought their suits about that. So it'll give you an outline of how to write a tax suit, how to write a suit against if your employer fired you over the COVID stuff. You'll have a list of things there. So it's really a great networking group for people that want to start taking this litigation thing. And it's a slow process. And we tell people the best way to start, Sean, parking ticket, a traffic ticket. They're the easiest ways to get started because very low threat, like very low danger involved with that. Not like a tax case where if you do something wrong, they'll come steal your house. Right. So we sort of hold people's hands through that process on what we would do and how to do it. And certain people get in there, Sean, they're just clueless from the start. We'll tell them, listen, go pay the money for now because you're just not ready for this. And we'll teach you how this works. We'll walk you through it.
All right. Well, I like that. Everybody could use a little hand holding on these subjects because, some of us are learning how to file pro se like James Tracy does. And some of us are just learning what that means. Pro se means you're defending yourself and not hiring a bar attorney to do it for you. I think it's very interesting.
Can I give you one quick story? Can I give you one quick story that'll make your head explode? So, listen, the district court kicks it out. They call it a tax case. So I appeal it to the Third Circuit, okay? Bring it up to the Third Circuit. I file my appellate docket, my appellate my brief. He then has 30 days. The county had 30 days to respond. Well, he didn't do that. After I filed my appellate brief, he took some bogus little rule that they have, local rule, not a federal, local rule, and he filed this Rule 27.4 motion that had nothing to do with my case. Not only did it have nothing to do with my case, Sean, get this. Here's how sloppy the attorney was. His motion was 9 paragraphs, Sean. Ready for this? 5 of the paragraphs were taken from a different case. He literally copied and pasted 5 paragraphs out of the 9 from a totally different case. Okay. With him doing that, it made the remaining 4 paragraphs he had totally irrelevant and incomprehensible. They made no sense. So literally, he filed a blank document as a motion. 5 paragraphs from another case and 4 paragraphs that made no sense because there was nothing there else to support them. And the court went, yep, it's a tax case. Motion granted. And they kicked the case out. And what drives me crazy is I'll see people doing videos online going, Alphonse lost. He lost. I didn't lose anything. I can't even get an answer from these people. I haven't lost. We haven't had a trial yet. We haven't gotten a trial. I didn't lose anything. I just have a federal court they're afraid to let this matter go to trial because the whole thing ends when I go to trial in federal court. So that's how corrupt they are, Sean. The guy filed literally a blank motion, and the federal court went, granted. And that's what we're up against.
Yeah, we're up against total tyranny, taxation without representation, and tyranny of the state. I always wonder, we got to let you go here, but I always wonder, man, gas taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, beer tax, every single day, the county, the state, they all take a pound of flesh, the city. Where does this money all go? Where does the money go? I just can't even imagine how much money it is. On a weekly basis, they're taking in, and what they do with it is an absolute mystery to me, Alphonse. They need a Doge audit. They need a Doge audit.
How many reports have you seen the federal government? They misplaced how many hundreds of billions of dollars they don't know, they can't account for. That's in people's accounts, Sean. That's in politicians' accounts, okay? That's where that money's at.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm starting to believe. Hey, man, thank you so much for your time. We always appreciate a great update from you.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
All right. Keep fighting the good fight. And my hope is someday in the future, you'll come on and you'll say, okay, I got it all figured out. Here are the 5 steps you need to do to get off the property tax rolls in your county. I wish it was that simple.
So the day I die, I'm going to fight this.
All right, brother. Thank you so much.
Take care.
All right, guys. The website, municipalterrorism.com. The link is below. There he goes, Alphonse Faggiolo. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll remind you every single day for free. Get the real news, the antidote to corporate propaganda 24/7 at sgtreport.com. And until next time, God bless you and yours. Bye-bye.
Listen. One of the big issues in this last election was Bitcoin and crypto. I am the leading defender of Bitcoin and the leading defender of crypto in the United States Senate, and the left hates Bitcoin and crypto. Elizabeth Warren hates Bitcoin and crypto for the same reason communist China does, because government can't control it, and Kaylee, that's why I love it.